guys able to play Mike and Will, and you get a little bit more on his plate. What has he done to kind of catch your attention to where he's in the rotation now?
The first thing he does is just his ability to move and trigger and play fast. I mean, you know, simple fact of a linebacker, you better be able to run and hit, and he can do those things and change direction. So that's number one, catches your eye. Number two is he did. You know, we train him at Mike, and in our defense, Mike's probably the most, I don't know, schematically intensive position that you've got to learn in that room, and he handled it pretty well. And then midway through here, we've kind of made him do some will just to fill some different voids and give us some flexibility. And he's done a nice job handling it. He's still got a long ways to go, but he's putting the extra work in necessary to provide us depth at that position as well.
You guys listed Hunter, Esias, Sean, and Marcus as the 4 new starters in the second round. I'm just curious what, I guess, your confidence level is those guys can be a group that can stop the explosive plays at the back end and be successful right now.
Yeah, I mean, right now those are the guys we feel best about in terms of confidence level to do that, you know. But that's going to be a constant competition. Those guys got to play well, and prove it, because until the lights come on in a game, you never really know what you have. I mean, that's just the facts, and that's not a slight to them by any stretch of imagination. But, you know, it's funny, all of a sudden you go out to that stadium with a crowd, and, you know, weaknesses sometimes show that never have shown before, whether you want to believe it or not. It's the truth. And so they've got to do a nice job of executing when it comes, you know, live bullets.
You know, he's a guy that's, you know, battled injuries at times, but where have you seen Deshaun kind of progress the most to where he is now?
He's done a good job just being more consistent. I've always talked about Deshaun about being consistent. And, you know, I think he's been more consistent in how he handles himself on and off the field, his approach to the game, you know, which leads to production on the field from a consistency standpoint. But, you know, mentally now we're throwing him in there at Sam some too, you know, and for him to be able to get thrown in there and pick that up, I mean, that speaks to him. He's putting a ton of extra time in. I mean, just because he's late in his career academically, he didn't have a whole lot of class schedules, just to be honest with you. So voluntarily, he's took a lot of extra time on his own coming up and spending time getting coached up. And so that's been a huge positive.
How tough is it, you know, for a player like that, where it seems like every time you kind of get some momentum, you run into an injury or something like that? What's kind of the message to a guy like that? How did he kind of handle, you know, some of that stuff?
Yeah, I think that's football, though, to a degree, right? You have to be able to handle adversity, and football's about the ebbs and flows and the adversity that it gives you. And so just being mentally tough enough to go through that, I mean, that's kind of the bare minimum as a football player. And so he's handled it pretty well, but I would expect all our guys to handle it. You know, that's just part of it. So.
With the transition to game week, how much are you counting on the old guys, Nate and Jet and Crum, to get guys the right level of excitement, also the right level of, you know, be ready to play a game?
Yeah, that's a good question, I think. I mean, yeah, you absolutely count on them from a leadership standpoint in that locker room. You definitely count on them from a practice standpoint. Like, hey, it's Monday, but, I mean, every single one of these reps count from an execution standpoint, because you never know. I mean, you can't get every play an offense throws at you throughout the course of a week. So rules and things that we talk about from Monday on, they've got to be applied on the practice field, and you've got to have your head about you to be able to do that. And so obviously them number one leading by example and then pulling guys and elevating them is very important.
We don't know a lot about Southeastern Louisiana. What do you see from them in offense?
Very good football team, very well coached. I mean, that's an offense that scored 35 points a game. They rushed for 198 some change a game, threw for almost 300 if I'm not mistaken. You know, they play with tempo on and off. You go back, clear back to like 2019, they played against Ole Miss up there, and it was like tempo. The first 3 series, they took, I don't know, 6 or 7 shots right off the bat, you know, so they're aggressive. They do a great job. They have multiple personnel groupings, multiple formations. You know, the interesting thing is now they got 2 quarterbacks. They've got the Eli Sawyer that's back, that played a significant number of snaps last year. I think he's a really good player. And then they got a transfer that was, I think, first team all conference at Northwestern State and transfers in. So, I mean, you're dealing with 2 different quarterbacks. And last year, the stylistic difference between the 2 quarterbacks is probably maybe a little bit more significant than this year. But, you know, they still have an element of quarterback run game, and I'm sure they're going to create that, whether it be Wildcat or some way. So, no, they're a very good football team. Very good, very talented. They believe they can win, I'm sure, in every game they go into. I mean, they've won 9 games, I think, the last 2 years for sure, probably farther back than that. And so, no, I have great respect for them.
Jet earlier today obviously had a lot of respect or a lot of praise for Southeastern Louisiana as well. Is it easier as a coach to, you know, get younger players to not overlook an opponent when an older player is taking them seriously like that?
I think it's easier to do anything when you have older players lead by example, to be quite honest. But yes, absolutely, to answer your question specifically, yes, it is. You know, if all of a sudden a younger guy walks in the locker room and older guys are saying, oh, this or that, and not taking an opponent serious, whoever that is, well, that's going to leak into everybody else. But that's not the type of guys we have in that room, and nor should it be. I mean, like I said, I have great respect for this football team.
As easy as it might be to maybe have a more routine opponent, is it still good as a coordinator to see a team that's going to challenge you in so many different ways in game one and get a look at what your guys know and what they need to work on?
Yeah, yes, you're right. But I wouldn't, to be honest with you, I don't think there's ever a game one that you don't feel challenged. Just because it's a new year, they have new personnel, you have an idea of what that personnel is, but how they're going to utilize it, I mean, they've had a whole offseason to change and tweak things too. So there's never been a game one as a coach that I felt comfortable. I mean, it's just a fact of life in this business.
We've heard from offensive coaches and offensive players about Seth Davis, but from your perspective and your defense and your linebackers, how big of a test has he been for you in camp?
He's done a really good job. I mean, I thought scrimmage number 2, he made us look silly tackling. I mean, that's just a fact. I'm being honest. I'm proud of it, but I'm being honest. He did a great job running through tackles, running hard. You look at him and think, okay, scat back type guy, make you miss. No, he can do both. And no, I think everybody's been very pleased with what he's put on film.
You've had the Sam linebackers the entire time you've been here, and also had the benefit of Tywee here for a while too. But how would you kind of assess that group, the depth of that group right now?
Yeah, I think I'd like to see somebody pull ahead, and just say it's my job, to be totally honest. But right now there is some depth there, because Paige, JP, and then obviously John as well. And so it's a constant competition. I hope that elevates all of them, and eventually somebody needs to head and shoulders put themselves above everybody.
I asked Kevin whether he was going to be on field or in the box. Just same question for you, and then your mindset behind your decision.
Yeah, I'll be on the field. I'm like a caged rat if I'm in the box. Just to be honest with you, I don't know how to do that very well. So I'll be on the field, and I think it's good to be able to look at those guys and communicate what I'm seeing and get a feel for it. So.
Thank you, Coach.
Still hard to believe new kids are growing up.
All right, Coach, you're now in the game week. What's the plans for practice this week and getting ready for the game?
Yeah, so today is all about base install and hitting the scout report and really focusing on the details and the investment that you have to put into a game plan each week. And that is taking a look at base packages, base plan that's going in, the pressures that they bring, and really diving into studying this opponent and not looking too far ahead. I think one of the things that we talked about today that is really important is that you just live day by day and play by play, and really lock in on just the base install, because that's as far along as we are right now. But there was a different energy today, maybe because the weather was nice and cool. But game week, I think, really magnifies and is different for everybody. Now you're not just going against our own defense. It's time to go win a game and find a way to go 1-0.
Seth Davis has obviously been getting a ton of praise, throughout fall camp. What have you thought about the way he's kind of embraced, the competition, even though, on the outside there's a ton of veteran guys that, everyone thought was going to just be ahead of him on the depth chart. What have you thought of the way he's kind of competed and pushed for, some reps?
I think Seth Davis makes the most of his opportunities. When he gets the ball and he gets it in his hands, he makes the most of his opportunities. And he's kind of sit there and he's patient. He's a quiet kid and he listens and he learns. But man, he has really done a great job of taking advantage of the opportunities that have been presented to him. And you know what? He's competitive. I mean, the moment is never too big for him. Whatever scrimmage it is, even in the springtime you guys saw, the moment's never too big. So I think he's really locked in on his responsibilities and his jobs, and he's really fun to watch. I mean, he's just a competitive kid that, like I said, the moment never gets too big for him. When he gets his opportunity, he really shines.
You got 5 scholarship running backs. They're all very, very different. How does that impact your job as a play caller when you've got that many tools in the shed?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think each of them brings a different skill set. Some are more like each other than the others. But for us, I think that's the part that's fun, and I don't mean to sound like a repeating record with the creativity, but you got backs that are good at different things. So you put them in different packages, and now your personnel packages get extensive, right? Because you got to call them for specific people. But how that affects me as a play caller, I think it's a good problem to have, where you just got to find out, the things that those guys do good and put them in the right situations.
Going off of that, how do you sort of maybe try to keep everybody in the room happy with the game plan and making sure they not only understand things but are involved in it and stuff?
Yeah, well, I think it's not so much about trying to keep guys happy as it is understanding that, when you get your opportunity and you know how stacked the running back room is, you've got to make the most of your opportunity. And that doesn't mean that we need you to hit a home run every time, but that means that, the pressure is on and the competition is high. So to me, it's always a good thing, right? And you'd like that to be like that for every position.
For first game or even any game, do you like to script plays, script a quarter, script things for your guys to start out with?
Yes, sir. I do. I like to script some openers, and that way you can personnel it and you can really make sure that it's honed in and detailed. But after the openers, it's pretty loose and pretty free game.
Will was asked today about you saying that he's kind of gotten to the point where he can finish your sentences on a play call. He said that he thinks he knows what your first third down call is already going to be. What's your reaction to that?
He knows. And I think that's the special thing about Will. He's done a great job already of, yesterday he was up here studying and watching film, and today he, had his quarterback study packet, and he was in the office going through it and really treating it, like the starting quarterback should. And, it's great to have a guy with experience like that because you can throw things back and forth. I need to know his comfort level in certain concepts, and he needs to understand that we're doing this to beat man coverage or to beat this coverage or to, attack, this pressure in this certain situation. So, I think that it's a special relationship whenever you get to the point where you're thinking on the same wavelengths, and, that doesn't always happen with every quarterback, right? But the ones that are experienced that, really dive into it are the ones that are special. And Will's special.
Sorry. I don't know if you've been asked this before during camp, but are you going to be down on the field or in the box, and what's sort of your mindset of making that decision?
Yeah, I call it from down on the field. Number one, I like to feel the flow of the game, right? And when the defense starts, wavering out or getting tired or whatever, when we can attack with different tempos. I like to look our guys in the eyes, right? And if they need a little motivation, a little encouragement, I'm going to give them a little encouragement, a little fire. I think the two advantages, calling it from the field, you get a more personal level, right? And you get a better feel and flow of the game. I think being up top, you're able to see leverages a little bit more, but it's important overall as an offensive staff, that you've got good eyes upstairs that can go through and tell you, hey, we need to come back to this. We got better leverage, on something that I might not be able to see from the field. So,
I'm sorry. I know you've had about 35 practices now or thereabouts, but 10 personnel has kind of been the staple here. How do you think your quarterback has kind of handled that? It's a completely different dynamic as far as the pass pattern goes, but a lot of different spacing and things like that. So how do you feel like the team has adjusted to the new personnel groups?
Yeah, I think the multiple personnel groups is something that's really important, but more importantly, everybody likes to talk about 10 or 11 or 12, and really, formationally, you can make the same 10 personnel formations in an 11 personnel or 12 personnel setting. So I think from a formation standpoint, we've got a ton of similarities. It's just a rotating multiple personnel package. But I think they're handling it well. I think everybody, is starting to really hone in on what their role is within the offense, and that's whenever, you become good, whenever everybody takes full advantage of their role.